All right, everybody, welcome into episode 142 of the Leaning into Leadership podcast. My guest on the show today is Paul Gencarella Jr. Now, you might be wondering, who is Paul Gencarella Jr.? Well, I can tell you this. Paul is a self-image consultant. He's a captivating speaker, and he's somebody who's really passionate about his craft. Now, you're probably thinking, Darrin, why would we want to listen to a self-image consultant? That doesn't seem to fit with what we do here on the Leaning into Leadership podcast. And I actually thought the same thing when I very first read about Paul Gencarella Jr. But then I got a chance to know Paul. I got a chance to spend some time with him and to learn a little bit about what really makes him tick. You see, Paul's not really about that self-image as much as he's really about mindset. With Paul, what you're getting is somebody who sees the secret to success in life as being about setting a positive mindset and how it can change your life. Paul has a really powerful story, actually, an incredibly powerful story about mindset and about how he went from a place, a very dark place, leaving the only job that he ever knew, being on the verge of suicide, having a breakdown, dealing with some medical challenges, to now just absolutely doing phenomenal things in his life. Paul's a fantastic guy. This is a really cool conversation, and I know you're going to love it. You'll get it all right after this.
Every now and again, I will get a question from someone, and they'll ask me about the transition that I went through leaving public school administration and becoming an entrepreneur. And they ask about what skills I needed to learn. They ask about how I have made this transition. And the interesting thing to me is, much like so many other things we do, it isn't necessarily about specific skills or about strategy as much as it is about just your mindset, about being willing to be patient, to really think things through, and not to get too down on yourself, understanding that you're learning something new. Today on the show, I have Paul Gencarella joining me, and we're going to talk a lot about that type of thing. We're going to talk about mindset, we're going to talk about attitude, we're going to talk about discipline. We're going to talk about really that 6 inches between your ears and how important your mind and your mindset are. But before we do that, let me just simply welcome you into the show. Paul, thank you so much for joining me today.
Darrin, thank you. That was a great intro, and I'm on board 100% with what you said, especially when you're transitioning, whether it be from careers, relationships, whatever have you. It's the same formula will work for whatever you're looking to accomplish. So thank you, and I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're going to dive into that formula. We're going to talk about all of that today. Before we do that, though, let's maybe kind of orient our audience to who Paul
Yeah.
Gencarella Jr. is. Maybe, I don't know, jump in the Wayback Machine to whenever it is you'd like to go back to and kind of bring us forward from there to, I guess, frame today's conversation and what brings you to the Leaning into Leadership
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Well, we all have a story, right, Darrin? We definitely all have a story.
Yeah.
I was in the insurance business as a salesperson for 25 years, and I was going to purchase the insurance agency from my boss, and it just didn't work in the sense that I wasn't willing to pay what he was asking, and I didn't want to be upside down for 5 to 6 years or so. And that's just what it is. You know what I mean? It's no fault of anybody else. I just didn't feel like going through that. So we chose to sell to a bigger conglomerate. And at that point, it worked out fantastic. I was able to sell other accounts that I couldn't normally sell. And then a year into the business, I was fired. There's a lot of you know insight to that with mental health and with specific challenges, Darrin. But I landed myself into an entrepreneurial position. Some people leave their jobs I was fired. So I ended up in the same place in a certain respect to make my career work. And I I placed myself into personal growth and development. So self-help industry. We've mentioned mindset. Really, what I do is I help people achieve what they want. The problem with that is most people don't know what they want. They think they know. And, if you ask 10 people right now, tell me your goals, your objectives, what you want to do, most people wouldn't really have anything concrete. I'm working at my job. I'd like, and there might be some dreams, but a lot of it, is really knowing what you want. So that's kind of the quick background as far as professionally. I am married for 24 years. I have 3 children, 2 in college, 1 entering next year. So I have the fortunate ability to pay for 3 college tuitions next year. So I'm looking forward to that, So,
Yeah.
But things really are well because I choose them to be well. You know what I mean? It's all a decision. You just saw a horrible car accident. Well, you can focus on the horrible car accident, or you can focus on the sunset that you're looking at right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's all in what we focus our attention on. And I'm not saying to bury your head in the sand. What I'm saying to you is take your head out of the sand and go towards the light, go towards the positivity. Everything in life, you can focus good or bad, and it's just a matter of taking that perspective and showing you the good amongst maybe the chaos, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
I
don't know if
think
that
that's
makes sense.
huge, right? No, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, this is something that, a lot of the times when I'm speaking to audiences, one of the big pieces that I will push is very similar to what you're saying. And that's every single day we've got a choice, right? When our feet hit the floor, we get to choose how we're going to show up that day. We get to choose the attitude, the mindset that we're going to bring, the energy that we're going to bring to our office, to our family, to whatever it is that we're going to be doing on that particular day. We've got that choice. And you're right, it's not about like toxic positivity or any of that kind of stuff. It's not about just, ignoring that, some challenges are going to come your way or that some difficult things may happen, but rather it's how do I look at that? How do I choose the mindset
Mhm.
to look at a challenge that may come my way? And I know you've got a great story about really kind of facing those challenges and,
Sure.
I guess going at it with really the correct mindset. I'm not going to try to set up the story. I'm just going to throw it right to you and
Sure.
let you run with that because it's such a great story.
Yeah, you definitely had a good segue because you mentioned that when we put our feet on the ground, we have a decision to make. And how many people do we know that run their lives through the outside world? They let the life circumstance dictate how they think, feel, and act. And we're just conditioned to do that. Well, now we have to be living inside out and dictate how we're gonna, run things, so to speak. And my story is pretty simple. It goes back to 2009. My middle boy, JP, John Paul, he was 5 years old, getting ready for his first day of kindergarten, and he was playing on a chair backwards on the back deck, and he fell 3 steps down onto a concrete patio and smashed his eye on his head onto the patio. And my wife was frantic. She called me. She's going to the pediatrician, and he looked at it and said, "Listen, fortunately, there's no vision issues. There's no problems. It's an abrasion. He doesn't have a concussion. And, I've checked everything out, so everything's in good shape." And that was a Wednesday, first day of school. On Friday morning, he had mentioned to us that he had just peed blood in the toilet. We're like, "Oh boy," So we were concerned naturally, but from my standpoint, it was from the fall. What I didn't realize, Darrin, was the fall ruptured his cancerous tumor that was on his kidney, which we had no idea at that point. Even at the local hospital, we had no idea. When they sent us up to the city hospital, they said it's because, they cater to children much easier. And my son was, crying because of the shot and all this other stuff. So, we just went up there reluctantly, saying, okay, fine, we'll go through this, this charade that he's okay, but, there should be no problem. So I remember to this day when the technician brought us into the nurse's station and had his computer pulled up, he said, here's your son's, healthy kidney, and here's his affected kidney. I said, okay. He's like, you see all the growth there? I said, yeah. I said, so can he play soccer tomorrow? And he's like, oh, geez, let's go into the other room. So I had no idea. My wife had no idea. We go into the other room, and they leave us in there for about a couple minutes by ourselves. I said, Betty, things aren't good. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, there's Kleenex boxes all over the place. We're in comfortable furniture right now. We're not going to get good news. She's like, you're crazy. So the doctors come in, and I said, so my son has cancer. And they said, whoa, slow down. And sure enough, I said, listen, I'm not going to flip out. We're willing to take whatever news you have for us. She's like, yeah, he does. He has, which was still shocking to me. So
Right.
at that point, our lives had turned upside down. But I will tell you this, from that point, they only got better. And we only focused on what's better. And it was the treatable diagnosis, the containment to just his kidney. Yes, he was going to lose his kidney. Yes, he was only going to be operating with one kidney, but he probably was operating his whole life with one kidney. So when you're dealing with a 5-year-old and you whisper that he's got cancer, we weren't doing that. Yeah, he's got cancer. It's a stage 1. So he's not adversely affected by what we're saying. He's thinking cancer is what it is. He just didn't want an operation. That was his concern.
Right.
So, we dealt with it that week, and we figured, what our best foot forward would be to stay in a positive, upright attitude. And I think our faith helps in that respect. We're passionate Catholics. I happen to be a passionate sinner, unfortunately, but with our faith, that faith community was praying for us, sending us gift cards, sending us meals. It was just unbelievable to see that side of things. And I truly believe our son is alive and healthy this day as a sophomore in college because of those prayers, and I can also say that my son saved my life because I was just so mind boggled by this, watching Sunday Night Football in 2009, my wife working in a restaurant, making some extra money, my kids asleep. And I just checked myself to see, what I found something on my left testicle. And I said to my wife on his cancer treatments, I said, I'm going to go ask something to the oncologist. She's like, I think it would be best for you to, go to a urologist instead of pulling your pants down in front of his oncologist, So I said, yeah, you're probably, I'm so impulsive, you know what I mean? I said, yeah, you're probably right. So I did. And my urologist said, yeah, that's a good find. I said, what do you mean by a good find? He's like, well, it's probably stage 1 seminoma. We're going to schedule you for a ultrasound tomorrow morning. And sure enough, they did. And sure enough, it was a stage 1 seminoma, and my son was almost elated that I had cancer because he felt, comfort in the fact that dad's got the same thing I have. We can't all be that bad. You know what I mean? But I said to him, said, JP, I have a higher survival rate than you. And he actually laughed because he had like a 93%. I think I had a 97% survival rate. So I would be so off color like that. And he kind of enjoyed it in a certain respect. He knew how I was, even at 5 years old, that you have to have the lighter side of life as well. You have to really look at things in that respect. And we went through, I say cancer together. I had 2 doses of chemo. He had 37. You know what I mean? So it was nothing for me. But what he went through was 3 doses of chemo every week, and then he'd get sick, feel good for 2 days, and have to go back at it again, as you well know with cancer treatments and stuff. So it was a challenge, but because of what we were dealt with, we handled it. I don't want to say in stride. We handled it fantastically well. We had close people come to us saying, "Listen, I just don't want you guys to be in the wrong mindset because things can go awry." And I said, "Listen, you can't fault me for being positive. I've already eulogized my son. So nothing is going to take anything away. And she's like, okay, I respect that. I just want you to know that, things could go, I just want to prepare you. And I said, listen, I've already prepared myself for that. But I think, Darrin, when we go about something with a positive attitude, no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. Even if our friend or my son died of cancer, we would find a way to find the lighter side of life, and the brighter side of life. And Unfortunately, I had both. I have my son who's healthy and alive, and we have a great, a great attitude at times. I kind of had a little meltdown last night, but that's neither here nor there. So none of us are perfect.
That's right. We're all entitled to a little bit of that here and there. But right. but I love that story. That's the second time I've heard you tell that story. And, to me, one of the big pieces there is just that, how you chose, to embrace that, how you chose to look at that. So often people will, kind of fall into that negative path. You mentioned it early in your response that we're almost conditioned to go to the negative or to be drawn into, kind of this, I don't know, self-pity or, self-loathing or whatever it is that we're dealing with. Why do you feel that most people will go in that direction and not in the direction that you chose to? And what's maybe a technique or something that you lean into, that you were having JP lean into, that, as a family you leaned into? I mean, you certainly mentioned faith, but what else might be something that people can kind of help themselves not go down that negative path?
Right. And I will preface this with saying that our brains are conditioned for the fight or flight process. They're always looking out, the cavemen, where's our next meal coming from? Where's the dinosaurs? So we're conditioned to be attracted to the crazy car wreck as opposed to the beautiful sunset. That's just how our brains are conditioned. But having said that, what I will say is that if you struggle with anxiety, depression, bipolar, which would happen to be myself, I was recently diagnosed in 2018 with that. How do you deal with these things? Because the time to treat depression is not when you are depressed. That's the time when you can't. It's too late. You can't think positive thoughts when you're down in the dumps like that. It's much more difficult, so to speak. So what I do every single day of my life, Darrin, in my journal, which I hated to keep a journal, now I love it. 1 through 10, I date it, and I write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. 5 of them are things that already happened. 5 of the next, the 6 through 10, are things that are going to happen that I'm grateful for. Whether it be income, relationships, wealth, vocation, whatever it may be. So now I have my arsenal filled with these good things, and I keep that. So now when I'm up at night and I wake up at 2:00 in the morning to use the bathroom, and I try to fall back asleep, and I'm thinking about the day's work and this and that, and I start now plugging in what I'm grateful for, and it can kind of soothe me to help me go to sleep. And that is very, very important. And that's just one little aspect of what we can do. I could be here all day telling you different techniques, but it really caters to the individual that I'm talking to. Some people can't meditate. I happen to be one of them. I struggle with meditation, but I'm very good when it comes to activity-driven things. So do what you're good at. You know what I mean? And that's what I suggest to our audience is go to what your strengths are. You know what I mean? If you struggle in a particular area, well, then don't go in that area to try to seek help. But a gratitude exercise is number one, and then bookend your days. Most people have an alarm to wake them up. I have an alarm to put me to bed. I don't have an alarm to wake me up. I just happen to wake up naturally at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm off to the gym. But at night, I need an alarm to say, okay, it's 8:30. You got 30 minutes to get ready for bed, meaning reading, pumping my mind with uplifting inspirational material so I can shut down the cell phone and all that stuff. So I have 30 minutes of preparing for bed. That's the key. So now I have a great night's sleep because of it. And it took a while. I'm going to say it took, probably 90 days for me to get into this routine and things. Now, again, you're going to have problems where you're at a party or something happens, you have a conflict, you're not going to be able to do it. Well, yeah, but for the most part, 5 out of the 7 days, if not 7 out of the 7, I am, regimented to a routine and a schedule for going to bed and reading and watching positive, uplifting material.
So I'm curious that you're journaling. I just want to dig a little bit more into that. I want to hear a little bit more. So 1 through 5, you're writing down things that you're grateful for that have already happened. And then 6 through 10, you're focusing on things that will happen. So in many ways, that is kind of that, training the mind to think positive, speaking things into existence, that type of thing. How often on your list, and don't have to go super deep into this, but I'm just curious, how often on your list are things repeated? So in other words, 6 through 10 tonight, a week from now, are 6 through 10 the same? Do those things kind of move around? Tell me a little bit more. I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm an open book, but I will tell you this. We have a family of 5. Well, 2 are in college right now, so there's only 3 of us in the house. But I have a 3-year-old miniature Australian Shepherd. Theo is his name, like Theodore, but Theo, my daughter named him. And he's a fantastic companion. And I say to people jokingly, he's the only one that shows me affection in the house, consistently anyway. And that he makes the list a lot. Walks with Theo, because I jokingly say, when we're walking up to someone, we have a race to see who can talk to the person first, him or myself. You know what I mean? Because he loves people and I love people. You know what I mean? So we really, since COVID, we've been walking 4 times a day. Not long walks, but we'll go out and make it a habit of walking 4 times a day. So he makes the list consistently. But I do make sure my wife is probably on that list just as much, if not more, than Theo is. If I had to go through all my my journal entries, my wife is on there a lot for whatever she may have done. I come home from church and she has breakfast prepared at 7:30 in the morning for me, 2 hard-boiled eggs and, 2 pieces of wheat toast with peanut butter. You know what I mean? Little things like that, Darrin. It's not the big, surprise birthday parties that make the marriage. It's those little things that you do every day for your spouse, or that's done for you every day by your spouse, that makes you love them. You know what I mean? And that makes you decide to love them, even though when you have a knucklehead husband like myself, you can't love them all the time, but you can decide to love them. You know what I mean? So that's the, and it's not just that journal entries. I write my goal out, every single day, and I have a reminder on my phone every 3 hours throughout the day to recite my goal. And it's not just positive mindset. That goal that I state and write, yes, it goes in here, but I have to, and you as the audience have to make that emotionally connected. You have to become connected emotionally with what you're saying and doing, or it's not going to go to the next step, which is action. And then you need to act on that goal. So if I had, for example, a goal to be a millionaire, I would need to first become a millionaire before I can earn $1 million. You have to live the part. You know what I mean? You can't be a millionaire. That's why these people that win the lottery are broke in 20 years or 10 years or whatever it is, because they don't have the mentality. They don't have the mindset. That's why the person that lost 50 pounds gained it all back, because they changed their behavior and they didn't change their mindset. So now their behavior changes and their mindset's still the same as it was. So they go back to the weight they were. So those are some of the things that it's getting a hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that takes me honestly to the next question that I really wanted to dive into with you. So perfect setup for that. So often people will, try something new and it will fail, whether that's like you mentioned, hey, we lose weight, and then it just all comes right back because we don't change habits, or they try a new side hustle or something and it fails, and often it's not because it wasn't the right work. It's because they have their own limiting beliefs that I'm not good enough for this, or I don't deserve to have this type of success. I don't deserve to earn $1 million. I don't, on and on and on. And that's what I really want to get into. I know you
Sure.
work with people all over the country on their mindset. Let's talk a little bit about those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
How do we work with that? How do
Yeah.
people overcome those limiting beliefs to really achieve some success?
Yeah. And again, that's a powerful question with not really an easy answer, because it's not uniform for every single person, but the formula is still there. But let me just break it down to you this way. Uh, there's logic, and then there's emotion, you know, and most people would say to someone that's making $50,000 a year, that has a goal of making $1 million a year, that's illogical. That it's very illogical. But that person is motivated emotionally, and he's being motivated by his emotion. So whether his name is Henry Ford, or the Wright brothers, or Sir Edmund Hillary, who climbed Mount Everest after two failed attempts, or Roger Bannister, who broke the 4-minute mile, these people, Darrin, were illogical. They weren't operating with a full set of upstairs. People said they're crazy. There's no way they're going to do that. Why would you go back to Mount Everest after 3 times? You're going to die. The Wright brothers were trying to have nothing heavier than air is going to fly. That was the philosophy. Don't forget the world was flat for the first 1,500 years that we were alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most people, forget that. So the point is, when you have the emotion driving you in that respect, that's what takes you to the top. That's why I lost my patience last night with someone, was because I let my emotion take over. But I can also let that emotion take over in a positive way and get me to that point of where I want to go. So it's not a matter of, making $1 million. It's a matter of multiple sources of income. MSI. You have multiple sources of income now. So now you do this, and you do this, and you have this, and it's passive over here, and a passive source over here. Next thing you know, most of these millionaires, if not 100% of them, have more than one income source. It's not just one income source. You know what I mean? So we can't be thinking in the mentality that we have a $50,000 income and want to be at $1 million income. You know what I mean? We have to live differently and act differently before we get to that point. Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan until he gave himself that practice day in and day out to make him get to that point. Kobe Bryant, you could say LeBron James, whoever, my dad would probably say, what's his name? Bill Russell, all of these ultra achievers, actors, actresses, celebrities, multimillionaires, they all have a drive, an inner drive. And that's what you and your listeners, we need to have that. You know what I mean? And you preach this, Darrin. I say preach it, but you have this philosophy. It's just engaging our audience to let them know that, yes, you can do this. No one's any different than we are. We make ourselves that way. We almost say, well, that person can do it, but I definitely couldn't do that. Why do we do that?
Right.
Of course you can do it, but you have to want to do it, and you have to believe that you can do it. And I say to people all the time when I'm talking to them, I said, listen, you don't have to believe that this goal that you just created is possible. You don't. You just have to believe that I believe it. Just put your faith in me at this point. I will bring you there to help you walk on your own and understand how to get there. So that's been the challenge for myself, really, is getting people to come up with what they truly want in life. Because most of them really don't know. They really don't know. I imagine a majority of our listeners that are entrepreneurial probably do, and they can understand it, but 97% of society doesn't. And that's international as well. I'm dealing with a lot of people, lately in Africa, all over the place, India and Africa. And it's the same limited beliefs. It's not, just the United States. So it's a challenge, but it's a
Yeah.
challenge that I'm passionate about. You know what I mean? And I know it can work because I'm living it. I was in a psychiatric hospital 2 years in a row, 2018 and 2019. That was the worst stage of my life, but it was a blessing because I was diagnosed with that. It was a blessing to me now because it brought me to get fired and to fall into personal growth and development and to help people help themselves. It's nothing better than helping someone, right? Yeah, that's fine. But not me. I want to help someone help themselves. Isn't it best to help someone bring out the best in themselves? It's like teaching someone to fish as opposed to giving them the fish. Now they can teach other people to fish. And that's what, in a certain respect, we're all called to do in a certain way, and that's my passion, as you can tell by my my voice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You've got me all fired up over here too, man, because with what I do, certainly, working with and helping leaders to be their very best selves, to, have them really show up in their purpose. We're very much on that same page where it isn't just necessarily about helping them, but about helping them help themselves and allowing them to overcome those limiting beliefs that, yes, you do have the right to be successful. Yes, you can do this. And just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean you can't do it, or even for that matter, do it even better. I think that's just, there was clearly some passion, Paul, that came out right there. And you've got me pretty fired up about it too. However, with that said, we have reached that point in the program where I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody who comes here onto the podcast. Our goal here is to continue to help leaders be the very best that they can be, no matter what role they may have. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. Anybody can be a leader.
Parents.
So absolutely. Parents, teachers, business people, clergy, you name it, whatever your role is, that's not the important piece. Everybody has the opportunity to be a leader. Again, it's a choice, just like your mindset is a choice. So anyway, the question is this. This is the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. So, Paul, what are you doing right now to lean into leadership?
Yeah, I love that question. And 3 years ago, I learned and I study continually. A good leader gets other people to believe in the leader, right? Well, an effective leader gets people to believe in themselves. And that's what's fantastic. So now, if I can get someone else to believe in themselves, it's like such a victory for me. And that's what keeps me excited and just moving, because now not only does it work for me, but this other person now can see that whether they're a parent, a colleague, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be, their leadership role, they can bring out the best in other people as well, because they're bringing out the best in themselves. That's where it starts. You hear it all the time. The oxygen mask drop out of the plane for you to put on first, so you can breathe and you can live to help the other person next to you. So that's what we need to do. We can't be helping everybody else and not helping ourselves. And you see that a lot with therapists specifically. They're too busy helping everybody else. And they're it's like the cobbler's shoes. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Excellent. I love that so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation, Paul. People are going to want to get in touch with you. They're going to want to check out your work. How do they find you? How do they get connected with you?
Yeah.
Where do we want to send to folks?
Yeah, right. And again, on a podcast like this, I would just post my email, Paul, J.R. Conti, Conti, @gmail.com. And then my text line, I always give that out because people all the time text and ask questions and things, just curiosity wise. That's area code 401-741-0162. So if you could post that, that'd be great as well. And again, there's no charge to talk to me at all. I give a lot of free counsel out because it gets the ball rolling. And the more people you help, it's just going to come back to you. It's the universal law of cause and effect. So Darrin, thank you so very much for giving me this forum to to share my story. I appreciate it. I really do.
Absolutely, man. This has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it so much. Folks, all of that information is going to be down in the show notes. So if you're driving, don't try to pull over and write down that number. It's in the show notes. We'll make sure that all of that is in there, along with how you can get in touch with Paul on social media. Paul Gencarella Jr., thank you so much for joining me here on the Leaning into Leadership podcast.
Thanks, Darrin.
Okay, like I said, that conversation did not disappoint. I had so much fun with Paul. I'm so grateful that he came here on the show. I'm so grateful that he connected with me and that I've had the opportunity to get to know him. So take advantage of the opportunity to get to know Paul yourself. Hit the stuff down in the show link so you can go get to know a little bit more about him and reach out and just have a conversation with him. He's really a fantastic guy. And now it's time for a pep talk. So last week, I was doing one of my final visits of the school year. Those of you who follow the show know this, but part of the work that I do is coaching and supporting and mentoring school leaders all over the country. Well, I was in New York working with an assistant principal who I've been supporting for the course of the last year. She's actually transitioning from one role into a different role in a different district. And so it really was going to be our last working day together. And at the end of the day, I just simply asked her what she learned about herself and what she had learned about leadership during the 2 years that she had been an assistant principal at this school. Her answer was amazing. She shared with me 5 things that she thinks are super critical in leadership. And I just simply want to share them with you. I think that it's an awesome list. It's maybe not an absolutely, all-inclusive list, but her 5 things to really be a great leader that she's learned during her time go like this. Number 1, being a great leader is treating people with love and with respect. If we can't demonstrate true empathy and compassion with the people around us, it's very difficult to expect them to follow us. Number 2, she said, being consistent as a leader is so critical. She's worked with really good leaders. She's worked with not so good leaders. And among them, one of the not so good leaders is somebody who shows up differently every day. You never know what you're going to get from that person, from an emotional standpoint, from an expectation standpoint. Being consistent means I'm the same person day after day. You know what I expect. You know what I'm going to do. You know how I'm going to react. And you know how I'm going to treat you. Being consistent is huge. Right? Being a listener. Being a listener is absolutely huge. That was the third one that she brought up. And I'll tell you, this is to me a big struggle for many leaders is listening to hear, not just to respond. True listeners are those who really lean in, who pay attention, who try to empathize, try to understand, and really seek that knowledge that somebody is sharing when they're speaking, not just simply waiting for our opportunity to talk. Number 4 that she shared with me is great leaders trust their team. When you put yourself in a position where you're surrounded by others and you're expected to lead them, you need to do just that, but you need to trust them. You need to allow them to do their job. That's some great conversations recently here on the show. Danya Ball, as example, we talked about micromanagement and how we fall into that trap when we don't trust our teams. Great leaders are going to trust the people around them. They're going to let them do what it is that they need to do, and they're just going to provide support and feedback. And then number 5, she said, great leadership is about clarity. I love that she went there. You guys know that I love that she went there. But being clear about your expectations, being clear about your values, being clear about what you care about is really critical for any leader. Now, my challenge for you this week is, what does leadership really mean to you? What does it mean to be a great leader? And what is it that you would put on this list? Would you have the same? Would you go with something different? I'm curious. Hit me up in the comments, shoot me an email, shoot me a DM on social media. I would love to hear your thoughts on what it really takes to be a great leader. Thanks for listening to the Leaning into Leadership podcast. Have a road talk.